In just his first year, Jon Sumrall has put together the best Florida Gators transfer portal class of all time.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Monday. I am Brandon Olsen, lifelong Florida Gators fan, your host of Locked On Gators. And what a transfer portal window it's been, right? We've been loving it. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is wrapping up tonight, thankfully, right, considering who's in it. And FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost tonight, the last final game day that you have. And the Florida Gators have quickly put together the best transfer portal class that we've seen, which again, transfer portal is not a thing that's been open for a very long time. This is not like some, 40-year history of building classes in the transfer portal. However, I do still think that it's important to acknowledge that, this is the best Florida Gators transfer portal class that we've seen, partially just because of the volume that you brought in, but also the actual players that you brought in, right? I mean, you look at this 2026 class for Florida, and you brought in a genuine top receiver in the portal in Eric Singleton Jr. You brought in Cam Dooley and DJ Coleman, who I think are both very talented safeties. Honestly, I think that DJ Coleman is immediately best safety on the team. I think he'd also be maybe the best nickel on the team. And I think Cam Dooley is automatically top 3 safety and probably top 3 nickel as well. So I do think that part of what I love about this transfer portal class is that you're bringing in guys like Cam Dooley and like DJ Coleman that can both play safety, can both play nickel, can contribute in multiple ways. You brought in Kanye Clark from UCLA, who he can play corner and he can play nickel. And you brought in guys that are really versatile, and that seems to be a thing, right? It's experience, it's versatility that really makes this transfer portal class work. And I don't care about, if people want to talk about the rankings of the transfer portal classes. Frankly, I don't even know what the rankings are for the transfer portal class because, well, they mean that little, okay? They really do. They mean that little as we're talking about, who's actually good, who's not, which players that were brought in are supposed to be starters and studs. It's like those recruiting rankings mean nothing. They're often completely inaccurate because you just, again, it's nothing against them. It's just you simply cannot possibly properly recruit that many players. Over 10,000 kids at the portal this year. You can't evaluate all of them and be right. No matter how hard you work, there's just simply not enough time. So I don't care about the rankings for that reason. However, you can go to swampsignal.substack.com, and basically every day now, we're releasing a scouting report of how I feel about some of the transfer portal players. So we'll be talking about them. We'll be getting to see them a lot. But for the Florida Gators, I think just at the starter level, the guys that you brought in are really promising for this team, right? Like Eric Singleton Jr., from people I've spoken to, because again, the way I started in media was covering the NFL draft. From people I've spoken to, there are a lot of people that were like, that dude was not making it past day 2. Why he went back, I'm not really sure. So that, well, he went back to hopefully get into day 1 or earlier on day 2. But he also made the right decision to go back and play with, I know people bring up Aaron Philo. The way more important thing is that he went back to play with Buster Faulkner, his offensive coordinator at Georgia Tech, when he had the best years of his career. And then he went to Auburn, and Auburn is where offensive players' production goes to die. And now Eric Singleton is coming back here for Buster Faulkner and to be part of this Florida Gators offense and to join Vernell Brown III and Dallas Wilson. And just at the top, that's really promising of a top 3 receiver room or of your top 3 receivers. That has the potential to be the potential to be the best in the country, but will hopefully be one of the best in the country at least. For me, like I know everybody wants to talk about VB3 and Dallas Wilson and be like, oh well, we already have that. Dallas has played 3.5 games. VB3 played 10. I'm not gonna crown anybody until it's proven. And so I'll say that, like, I'm not saying Florida has a top 3 receiver room in the country or anything like that, but I do think that if Dallas progresses the way that you were hoping and stays healthy, and VB3 progresses the way that you're hoping, Florida might have a top receiver room in the country, especially with the top 3. So Eric Singleton right there again, like I already mentioned, Cam Dooley and DJ Coleman. Like I also know like people bring up the rankings, and with DJ Coleman, I don't care where he's ranked. There was 1, maybe 2 safeties that I would have taken over him of all the safeties that hit the portal. So I really don't care about where he's ranked. Harrison Moore on the interior of the offensive line, TJ Shanahan on the interior of the offensive line, both guys that I anticipate starting for the Florida Gators in 2026. And honestly, I'm good with both of them starting. Like the film just looks good for both of them. TJ Shanahan, more of a pass blocker than, or he'll be known more as a pass blocker than a run blocker. I thought he was really effective when he was pulling. And I do think that with Buster Faulkner, he'll recognize that and get him pulling more. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like. Harrison Moore, someone that could play center or guard. And for Florida, like I mentioned, that versatility, that matters. TJ Shanahan can play both guard spots. I think he'll play right, but he could play both. You've got the mix between Moore and Shanahan and Rod Kearney and Najee Harris and Bryce Lovett. And you've got guys where you could say, hey, you could play 2 spots on the offensive line. And for Florida, that's really valuable. Having that versatility. And I know that I say this all the time, and I know people get tired of hearing it. And frankly, I don't care, because it is how I feel about the offensive line play. You can have a normal conversation with me off air. You can talk with me in Twitter Spaces. I will always say with an offensive line, I care way more about how a unit performs as opposed to the individual. I almost said individual unit, and that's obviously an oxymoron. But I care more about how a unit performs compared to strictly an individual. Like, I don't think you need these big star name offensive linemen if you can get a unit to play together. I've said it, I'm a Giants fan. I watched when they were good, when they weren't terrible. Like, it was always, every time they had a good offensive line, has never been, oh, they've got this all pro here, this all pro here, this Pro Bowler there. It's always just been, hey, they just have dudes that work together really well. And having the chemistry there matters a lot. At least, again, for me as a fan, like, and an analyst, like, that's what I look for on the offensive line, is the unit. Talking about other starters, like Aaron Philo, quarterback from Georgia Tech, going to be competing with Tramel Jones for that QB1 job. And I think many, if not most people, will say that they anticipate Aaron Philo to be the starting quarterback for the Florida Gators. We spoke about that. I want to say it was the Friday morning episode of Locked On Gators. So if you want to go watch that, you can watch that. But we spoke about that on Friday morning. I'm not as sold as some others that this is some foregone conclusion that Aaron Philo is going to be QB1 for the Florida Gators. I think he's got the leg up. I think he's the favorite, sure, but I don't think it's – I think it's 60-40 in favor of Aaron Philo at the absolute most. I think it's closer to 55-45. So I don't think it's as cut and dry as a lot of people think. These coaches still need to win games and still need to be productive on offense. It's not just, oh, I promised this guy a job. And that matters. We'll talk more about this transfer portal class when we're back with Locked On Gators. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoff, which one more today. Indiana, Miami going at it. Indiana, an 8.5 point favorite at the time of reading this. And I hope they cover that by 45 to be frank. Every college football playoff game day and every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost just waiting for them in the app. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost and NFL playoff profit boost every game day. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free for the podcast and on YouTube. And like I mentioned, which I will also say before we even get too into it again with the quarterback conversation, Locked On has recently started the Everydayer program. So if you want to join that and you want to join the Locked On Gators Everydayer program, you can go to lockedongators.supercast.com and you can join it. It's $5 a month if you want to go. You join a Discord. We're all in there. And I mean, all of us, like all the Locked On hosts for pro and college, and we're in there. We're active and we're talking. You get access to ad-free episodes as well. There's other memberships to go more, and you get more bonus content. You get the subtext program, the insider program if you want. Just saying, if you don't, you don't. If you have questions about it, you can put them in the comments and I'll get to them. You can hit me up personally on social media and I'll get to it. But the Florida Gators are going to have a quarterback competition between Aaron Philo and Tramel Jones. I think it's open, right? I think it's open. I've said that before. And again, we spent a lot of time talking about that Friday. In the running back room, there's also going to be a competition, which I'm looking forward to. I am, because Florida went out and they brought in London Montgomery from East Carolina, which was not necessarily shocking, but a little bit surprising considering he was pretty damn productive at East Carolina. Lead back, but, Buster Faulkner known for having explosive rushing attacks, getting the football to running backs in space and letting them make plays. I get the appeal of wanting to be a running back playing for Buster Faulkner offense behind a Phil Trautwein offensive line, which Florida, by the way, has had London Montgomery before he went to East Carolina, was at Penn State for a little bit. So he's run behind a Phil Trautwein offensive line already. He knows what that's like. He knows how they work, how they block, and what that looks like. So solid sign there. They also went out and got Evan Pryor, who was at Ohio State and then Cincinnati. And he is just a speed demon. No other way to put it. So they've got some speed in the running back room. They've added that. That's going to be the rotation. Obviously, the battle is not between Jaden Baugh and anybody else. That's not going to be it. But the battle is between London Montgomery. You've got Evan Pryor. You've got Duke Clark. You've got Byron Lewis. You've got a competition there for just who's going to see snaps, who's not. And I think Evan Pryor is the only one that has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Everybody else has multiple years. So you could have a productive stable rotating in. Or, well, this year, you're probably going to have Baugh as just clear running back one in terms of how many touches he's getting. Talent-wise, we know he is. But next year, you could have way more of a committee approach to things and see how that one goes for the Florida Gators. But again, this is a running back room that got a bit juiced up after you had a few players leave. KD Daniels left. You had Trayon Webb leave after he was expected to come back. KD is now at Wake Forest. Trayon Webb's now at App State. So you've had quite a few guys duck out, and it is what it is, frankly, right? Jacoby Jackson is now at Ohio State for him. So you've seen it happen with some running backs now, and you reloaded the room. The room is undoubtedly faster now. There's no doubt about that one. In fact, I'd argue that Evan Pryor and London Montgomery are both faster than all the other backs that left the room. So running back room is definitely faster now, way more explosive. That's going to be a good, fun rotation to watch, and I'm sure the spring clips from that are going to be nuts. But Florida just went and added quality players. A lot of them had multiple years of eligibility or have multiple years of eligibility remaining so that they can come in and they can compete and they can, if you win the battle, then you can start for 2 years, right? If you lose the battle, you can portal out or you can come back next year and compete, especially if you lost the battle to someone that only has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Have a little bit of a conversation there, right? In the tight end room, Florida is going to look very different, right? You brought in Luke Harpring from Georgia Tech, and one of the first transportal commits that you got was tight end Lakota Dipper from James Madison. Florida was looking at South Alabama tight end Trent Thomas, but he ended up committing to, was it Tennessee? I think it was Tennessee. So he ended up committing to Tennessee there instead. So you didn't get that, but you did get Lakota Dipri, and you had Luke Harpring, who both of them way more dynamic than what Florida had in the room last year. And that's not to be a knock on anybody or a shot at anybody, but much more dynamic. I don't know if the tight end room is going to be better in 2026, but I know it's going to be more dynamic, especially if Amir Jackson finally does come to fruition and really take on a role for this offense and really be a significant contributor finally. Then you've got that there. Tony Livingston portaled out as well. Just the other day, or I guess now at this point, almost a week ago. About a week ago. Sorry, I mean not. But transferred out about a week ago. And then you had, Amir Jackson, Micah Jones is going to step up into a larger role. So the tight end room is going to have a lot of competition there. Multiple guys with multiple years of eligibility remaining. That's not by accident, right? Like that's not an accident. The wide receiver room you brought in, it felt like bringing in 1,000 guys, right? Because there were so many that were coming in for visits or did come in for visits or scheduled visits and then didn't come in for them, whatever it may be. But Florida just basically went out and said, hey, we need bodies in the receiver room. And the way that we want to get that is with guys that have just pure speed that we can put out there and let them run, right? Like a Jalen Lloyd came in from Oklahoma State. He's just fast as all hell, right? Bailey Stockton came in from Georgia Tech, and he's not this speed demon. He's not unathletic either, but he is someone who is going to be more of comfortable, or Aaron Philo's comfortable with me. I'm going to line up in the slot. I'm going to get open for you, and we're going to pick up some first downs there. You brought in Micah Mays from Wake Forest, who is a player that I've said, like, I don't anticipate playing much of a role this year for the Florida Gators. But he's someone that if he does come onto the field, I am perfectly comfortable with him being out there, just because he's got the level of experience and production that I can at least look at and go, all right, I know that he's not the worst. The production is not great, but we've at least got enough, I guess we'll say, we've got film of him as a route runner, receiver, and ball carrier where you can go, all right, I generally know what we're getting here. And that's valuable, just having that depth that you can trust. Then the defense, or the rest of the defense, is the defensive line, right? Florida on Thursday got Samu Tamanu Pepe to commit on Thursday night. He ended up decommitting on Saturday night because why not, right? Welcome to college football. And Florida on the defensive line this year added Emmanuel Oyebadejo from Jacksonville State, who he's the big ticket, right? He's the big name there. He's someone who played defensive line / edge. And a lot of that edge is playing the 4-eye. And I think that at Florida, that's where he's going to be. I know that, the reports are, hey, he's going to play on the interior. I think by the interior, they just mean he's going to have an edge rusher outside of him. Like, he's not going to be the last guy on the line. He's going to be the interior. So I think it's that. But I still think he's going to play, a bit of a 3-tech, 4-eye, 5 role where he should be. By the way, 6'7", 315 pounds, depending on where you look. DK Kalu, 6'3", 270 pounds from Baylor, transferred in. And he is someone that little undersized for like a pure A-gap guy. But I do think that's where he's somewhat expected to be. I think the Florida is going to be a bit smaller on the interior this year because I don't think you're going to be relying as much on pure nose tackles. I think you're going to be relying a little bit more on shooting gaps and being agile, and pulling an Indiana and running a bunch of stunts, as opposed to we're just going to be big and massive and push you back and fight that way, which I like. I prefer finesse rushers off the edge, the interior as well. I think you can get it done and work some havoc there. And then Florida added another commit last night on the defensive line. We will talk about him when we get back on Locked On Gators. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life, and this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from start to finish without the stress or guesswork. It's beautiful. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, trying to find out the forms, trying to read the forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. And they handle everything. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. I will never do my own taxes again. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert just for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free Rivers and podcast and on YouTube. And also just a reminder, we are also available earlier on audio than we are on YouTube. So if you're someone who, prefers listening on your drive to work or on a run or whatever, audio comes out at 3 a.m. Eastern time. YouTube comes out at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So there's that. But yeah, we're there. And we might go live today. Haven't fully decided yet. We got to figure out what the work schedule is going to look like with the Giants hiring John Harbaugh. We got a whole bunch going on. It's a damn good time. But there's only so much time today. But the Florida Gators last night added another commitment in Mason Clinton, defensive lineman from Southern Miss, listed as 6'5", 265 pounds on 3, but he's also listed as 6'5", 300 pounds on PFF. So there is clearly a very large difference between how big Mason Clinton actually is. I would argue that he's probably closer to the 275, 280 range than the 265 or the 300 range. That's just, I don't think that's what he's actually looking like when he's out there. But when you watch the film from Southern Miss, he is someone who shifts a lot into the A gap. Like he'll line up, head up on the guard, and then he'll shift to be head up on the center. That seemed just like how Southern Miss ran their defense, was a lot of defensive line shifts and stunts and twists and just going nuts with it. And when I watched the film on the interior, I really hope that's not how Florida is planning on using, or when I watched the film at nose tackle, I really hope that's not how Florida is planning on using Mason Clinton, because I don't think that's a good fit for him. I think if you have Mason Clinton and you say, all right, you're going to line up anywhere from the 3 tech to the 5, right? So you could be guard, tackle, distance. You line up anywhere there, and we're looking at someone that can actually, be a productive player on this defensive line. That could be a gap shooter. And just make plays. That's it. Like, you watch the film, he's not going to be someone that you see and you go, all right, well, you're going to be our nose tackle on the interior, or you're going to be our leading pass rusher. He's someone that just shoots gaps and make plays that way. And there's a role for guys like that on this defensive front. I think that this is going to be a much different defensive front that we've seen for the Florida Gators in recent years. I think you're going to go back to seeing athletic guys that are gap shooters on the interior, and less about space eating, less about setting the edge exclusively. Gerald Chapman, when he got hired at Florida, I think it was when he got hired at Florida, it might have been even before Florida, but he's said, like, his mentality on the defensive line that he likes is, we're going to stop the run on our way to rushing the passer. And how Florida's defensive linemen were used in the Ron Roberts scheme did not indicate that that was what they were trying to do. What it showed us was they were trying to stop the run first and foremost. And then if someone gets through as a pass rusher, they get through as a pass rusher. But it was very clear that, this was not a big pass rushing defensive front last year. Even the year prior, it was just Caleb Banks making play after play. And then, because of him, Tyreek Sapp got to be more productive and George Gums got to be more productive. Notice how both of them were significantly less productive without Caleb Banks on the interior this year. With Florida now, you're going to go for that kind of gap shooting mentality of we're going to just make plays. That's it. Like, that's all we care about doing right now is making plays. And I think that you'll see a bit more of that with guys, again, like Mason Clinton, like Emmanuel Oyebadejo, like those guys that are just athletes. I think DK Kalu can come in and play a bit of the nose tackle lineup, because there's going to be a lot of stunting, a lot of twisting. There's going to be just a lot of chaos up front. And they're looking more for athletic interior defensive players or more athletic defensive front players so that they can fully open everything. Because this is not going to be a blitz heavy defense. It's not. Like they're not going to be blitz heavy. I think that they want to truly be, hey, we're going to rush 4 more often than not. We're going to get home with those 4. We're just going to be really creative about how we use those 4. I'm good with it, frankly. Like that's an approach that I can get with. That's an approach that I can love. And I think that you could see a defense that once you get all your pieces in place can be really athletic and really disruptive without needing to say, hey, we're going to rush 5 and one of them is going to be, our nickel Sharif Denson. Like that's going to be something that you could avoid now. And you could just say, hey, we're going to rush 4. We're going to rush 4 in an athletic and creative way and a disruptive way. And that's how we're going to create chaos. Like I think Florida's defensive line, they're shifting back to being just athletes. And I miss those days. So I'm really looking forward. I do. I miss those days so much when Florida just had athletes and dudes up front. I can't wait to see more of it. Oh, man. I'm excited for that. Frankly, I really am. And I think that that's a way, like Mason Clinton is not someone I expect to play a huge role this year. I think he could be, 3-tech 4, 3-tech 3. And next year, because he has 2 years of eligibility, maybe he plays a larger role then. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen for Locked On Gators. Follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com. There's free content. There's premium content. We got scouting reports coming up of all the transfer portal players. And I will see you all next time.